The Plein Air Easton Podcast is brought to you by the Avalon Foundation, enriching the lives of those on the eastern shore of Maryland through the arts. Visit avalonfoundation.org for details on events, performances, and educational programming offered throughout the year. Today's episode is sponsored by JFM Enterprises, providing distinctive ready-made and custom frames and moldings to the trade since 1974. Visit jfm.net to view their catalog of designs.
It was every painting painted that whole week, except for the day of the quick draw. I have gray skies. Everything was gray.
It was like a nor'easter, right?
For a week. It was the longest nor'easter I've ever experienced in my life. It blew a gale for 4 days, and I think, we joked about it before. The artists were lashing their easels to trees and to their cars and painting inside their cars, looking out.
Hi, welcome everyone to episode 3 of Plein Air Easton Podcast. I am Tim Wigand.
Hey, I'm Jess Bellis. Welcome.
And Jess, we are speaking today with Susan Coviello from American Plein Air. Why did we pick her?
No, I really loved talking to Susan because I think as a plein air event organizer, sometimes you feel like you're the only one out there that understands. And so really like talking to her about our shared experiences and our shared best practices and our shared struggles like makes you feel sort of less alone out there. And I think the conversation includes some tips for people who might be starting a plein air festival.
Or if you're involved in one, there was a lot of good tips in there. And I felt like you guys could have talked for quite a while. But nonetheless, there were 6 or 7 really good, smart things that even everything from what she was talking about, the changes they were making this year or coming up this year to what you found over the last 15 years of running Plein Air Easton. I thought there was a lot of good stuff in there for people.
No, it reminds us that maybe we should all be talking to each other more often.
Yeah, definitely felt like that. And artists, they kind of, they talk about your own organization at the beginning of the podcast, but you make a big comeback at the end, so don't lose faith.
I think that instead of unorganization, is it disorganization?
I get corrected.
I think that you get a great
every podcast before we start. Here we go.
You got a good insider's perspective. I hope you enjoy the podcast. Hey, Susan.
Hey.
Welcome to the Plein Air Easton Podcast. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm great. Thank you for inviting me, and Happy New Year.
The thing that I would sort of start with Susan is to let all of our listeners know that Susan was our poor guinea pig right out of the gate. And since it is the new year, I'm always sort of reflecting on the things that I've learned. And man, what we learned in launching this podcast is, or relearned, is whenever you're doing something brand new, it is like 100 times harder than you think it's going to be. And there's a lot of hurdles involved. So I'm going to start off by thanking you for your patience and not running away from all of our kooky technical hijinks.
And you're still in the top 5. You're actually in the top 3. So, this episode.
So welcome. Susan Coviello is the executive director of American Plein Air, and it is just such an awesome event. We share so many painters across the 2 events, and we just really wanted to invite you on to kind of talk about what it's like to run such a big, well-received event. But before we kind of get into it, tell us a little bit about your background. How did you land yourself as the executive director of Caggiano? What was that evolution like?
I always joke that I keep waiting for the fraud police to come along and arrest me for this. I am not an artist. I'm the opposite of an artist, but I'm an organizer. And I was involved in a plein air event that we did quick draws for many years in Essex, one of our Caggiano communities. And I was involved in running that for 8 or 9 years. So when American Plein Air came along, the second year of it, they asked me if I would be on their advisory committee and just sort of help run it. And so I did that. And then for the 3rd year, Karen Ristabin, who was our project manager, stepped away. And then they asked me to be the project manager. And so I'm going into my 3rd year now. So I have no more excuses.
That's excellent. I think one thing that is an interesting similarity between Plein Air Easton and Caggiano is, Al Bond and I have worked on the Plein Air project here in Easton for all 15 years, and neither one of us are artists either. We're event managers. I come from a finance background, and, I don't know how similar that is across other events, but I think it's interesting that, like, again, I do not self-identify as an artist at all. I mean, I got lots of jokes with plein air painters where they're like, we could teach you to paint. And I'm like, I don't know that you want to sign up for that. It's pretty bad. Tim, on the other hand, paints every quick draw.
Yeah, I do. I joined it the first year when we did this for 15 years now, and I did it just to be a part of the festival. They were bringing a festival to town, and they were like, anybody can paint, and you can actually try and sell your painting.
He was like, what? I could make money?
Right. So I sold my first painting for $10 to a friend, and I went out and bought a sandwich, and I've been painting in the festival ever since.
That's one time a year he picks up a paintbrush. But what I'll warn everybody is his paintings have really improved over the 15 years, but mostly it's because he suckers other artists to come and help him make it better.
Exactly.
So he pulls like Jill Basham from the side of the street and says, "Can you paint on this for a little while?" And that's how it's evolved.
If I tried that as well.
I can't actually take the credit for that. There was a gentleman in New York. The guy's name was Kostabi, and he used to hire out painters to paint what was in his head, and he became a huge New York sort of style. So I can't take all the credit for the idea, but yes, it's been a lot of fun. And but you don't have to be a painter. You don't have to be an artist. So as you guys, what I guess from a project manager standpoint and an event manager, Jess, there's probably some big advantages to having that skill set specifically for something like this. I mean, how big is your event, Susan?
Well, we have in the past corralled 40 artists, which in
the keyword is corralled.
Takes an organizational, kind of expertise. They're all very different artists. I think not being an artist and being much more dispassionate. I'm passionate about Cape Ann Plein Air, but I'm sort of dispassionate. Also, I can look at it as more of a profession outside of
objectively
the artistic role of it, and be much more objective. Right. So I think that is really helpful for me. I've also learned that not all artists are particularly organized.
I was just going to say that exact same thing.
Follow through. So I think that's another thing that I am good at, so I can encourage the artists to, while they're here, to be a little bit more.
No, I think that's an interesting point, and I think we have the same advantage. I mean, again, I think we can make much more objective decisions because we're not artists. We are the organizers, and so I think that is really helpful. And I will certainly agree that corralling artists is the right word, because again, I think in terms of best practices, let's see, no matter what you write or how many times you write it down, they're all not going to read it. You can say it to their face and make them read it 2 times, and they're still going to say it's the first they've heard of whatever it is. So I think communication and organization is really key, and I don't think that a lot of artists that's how they come to the table.
They don't. And I will tell you that for the last 2 years as project manager, every night during Cape Ann Plein Air Week, after whatever it is we were doing, even if it was midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning, I would sit down at my computer and I'd write an email sort of wrapping up the day and then being very specific about the next day and what the next day brought. And I got a pretty good feedback from the artists who remembered to check their email in the morning, that those reminders were really helpful to them. So.
No, I think that those are. So I think we've actually identified maybe 2 best practices without even knowing it. And one is, if you're going to launch your own event, making sure that you maybe have some non-artist art lovers on your planning committee. That like to seek out people who do have experience in event management or project management. I think I think that's a mutual skill set that has added to the success of our events. And the second thing is over communicate, because especially if you're corralling 40 artists, they're going to need it.
Absolutely.
What are some of the things since being involved in Cape Ann that have really surprised you in a pleasant way? That you never thought, like either a sort of like takeaway or, something that you've learned since being sort of driving the bus at Cape Ann?
Well, I have to tell you, because I'm not an artist, and until we started doing the quick draw event in Essex, I was very unaware of plein air painting.
Sure.
I mean, I knew the name of it, but I was very unaware of it. And I will tell you that I'm constantly amazed at the amazing work that these artists do in a matter of 2 or 3 or 4 hours, or sometimes a day. I just have such respect for their craft and their work. It's just an amazing thing for me. It's been a wonderful learning experience for me. I also think that competition makes it hard. So I love to cook. I'm a good home cook, but I can't watch competition cooking shows because I get so anxious because they're rushing and rushing around and grabbing stuff and dropping things, and that's not how I work.
It gives you anxiety.
It gives me anxiety. So for these guys, for these artists who are here, and again, it's not necessarily rushed, but it is a competition, and they are competing every single day to see what wonderful work they can produce under such pressure is just really, it amazes me every day. It really does.
I think in terms of like advice for painters, I don't think that the competition circuit is for everybody, and certainly not some of the marathon events like Plein Air Easton that spans 10 days or longer if you sort of are doing things on the front end or back end. I think it's a lot, and we've certainly gotten feedback where people are like, I love your event and I'm never doing events again. It's not for everybody.
Right. And Susan, when you were doing the quick draws before, you had these before you had the plein air event. Did the perception of plein air painting change any between calling it a plein air event and having to maybe even market the word plein air versus marketing, say, this is a quick draw painting event? Did anything change when that happened?
It absolutely did, and I'll tell you that's because Cape Ann is really the American birthplace of plein air painting. It really started happening on Cape Ann, and so it's a trend. It's an art trend that has been here for a really long time. It's reflected in our local museums, including the Cape Ann Museum and his wonderful Homer exhibit that they just wrapped up at the end of last year. So I don't think that was a particularly difficult leap.
But Susan, you feel like the concept of plein air painting had broad-based name recognition before Cape Ann Plein Air really got going?
No. Certainly when we started looking for sponsorships, for example, we created a whole slide deck of information, and the first 3 slides are trying to explain what the heck is this. What I mean is for the Cape Ann community, plein air painting is not a brand new concept for this area. But for people, like I said, for sponsors and for other people that we're trying to engage, come and buy art, come and watch the art being produced, that did take a lot of education, and our board is very well versed in it. Obviously, I was less well versed in it when I started, but we had a strong advisory committee and then a board of directors that sort of leads that bus.
You mentioned social media. How essential is that to the success of an event?
We're debating that right now. We are debating that right now.
That's a big question.
We have, I don't know if you've ever looked at our Facebook page, but we have 6,500 people who have liked our page. We have really good response rates from people who click and people who follow through and all of that kind of
comment.
Thing. We pay our social media person, we have a stipend for that. That's a stipended position.
Understood.
It's being discussed right now about what really the monetary value is. What do we see? What is the value, especially in driving art sales? People to come to Cape Ann Plein Air Week and then to stay and then to go to the gala or go to the quick draw and buy art. So it's a discussion right now about how we think it's great. We love everybody seems to love us, and every time we post a painting of one of our past artists, we get 1,500 to 2,000 likes on that picture. What does that translate to? So we're sort of having that conversation now. So I'd be interested to know what kind of focus Easton puts on social media, for example.
I just want to clarify, when you post a picture on your Facebook page, you get 1,500 to 2,000 likes on that painting. Did you just say that?
I
maybe. Wow, that is extremely high. I mean, you should definitely keep doing social media.
Don't stop. Here's our best practice to you. More of that.
You know what? That's really good feedback because, as I said, we are financially. We'll get into this. We weren't as successful last year as we have been in other years. We're looking at our budget and budgeting different ways. And one of the discussion items is how will we budget for social media? Right now it's sort of a significant number, and they're trying to figure out. So that is very good feedback from you, and I'll bring it to my board meeting at 4:00 today.
I love it. I think one of the things that we struggle with at Plein Air Easton when we think about our strategic future is, we put a heck of a lot of energy into 2 weeks in July, and we've got to sort of ramp up the marketing machine so hard to get there. And then we're up there and we're getting all of that attention, and we have and then it's okay, now we back to our regularly scheduled programming. We're sort of back into our day-to-day existence. That's part of the catalyst behind having these conversations and launching this podcast is, how can we keep the momentum going on a year-round basis? I think that if we move this conversation to what are the challenges of an event, I think that that's one of them. It's how do you stay front of mind with the plein air community, especially the one that exists outside of your little echo chamber, but to encourage heads and beds and travelers to come into town. We need them thinking about Plein Air Easton right now, because that's when they're going to start thinking about their trip in July and start booking it. It's when you're cold and wearing your scarf in Easton that you're remember, you're not thinking that Plein Air was as hot as it was last year. But you need to stay front of mind all the time. And I'm just not sure that there's another way to do that outside of social media. If there is, I don't know what it is. Would you agree, Tim?
Yeah, 100%. Again, that's part of the reason behind the impetus for even these podcasts. So anything electronic, digitally that you can do. But the problem is that you always feel like even if you've done Facebook and Twitter and Instagram, that there is, there's a buyer somewhere on Etsy, and there's a buyer somewhere on TikTok, or there's a buyer somewhere. So you'll always be battling that. But yeah. I think your point's right. Just where else would you do it?
Well, and I think one of the things that's so challenging is it's social media is like an endless abyss. You could sit online and make posts on all the various platforms all day long, 7 days a week, and you would still be missing people. Mm-hmm. And you monetarily you might be putting in money to boost it or to target different and new people to come and like you, but it's kind of, when you had a traditional advertising budget and you said, okay, I'm going to be in this magazine and this magazine and this magazine, and here's what our print ads look like. You were kind of okay, I've spent my budget, I'm going to cross my fingers and it's done. With social media, it always feels like you could be doing more. Right. And I think that that's a really hard thing to balance.
And with your situation, Susan, the really number is how much are you spending on social media? That could be something that, especially if you're paying someone directly to do it, and then how much are you actually spending for the posts. You would have something to look at there, because I'll give you for instance, and I don't want to turn this into a Facebook conversation, but I spent part of my holiday, I deleted 450 friends off of my list. I had 900 friends. I deleted 400.
Oh my God, did I make the cut?
I'm not even sure. I was just deleted.
What?
I was just...
Maybe he unfriended me is what I just learned here on the podcast. Oh, look when we hang up.
And you still see the same people posting. Your question's a good one because, as I said, even though I've deleted all those people, it's every time when I look, it's still the same 30, 40 people that are coming through. So unless you're buying ads, or you can do one of two things. You can buy ads or you can post every 25 minutes. That's how you're So
if you actually want your stuff to get seen.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, I think that that's hard. So I think that that's a great segue to like what are the challenges that face, large plein air events like ours that, again, I think that the artists love, but that doesn't mean that it's going to make it successful. And I think we've seen a lot of really great events suffer from some both buyer fatigue, from some volunteer fatigue, and we've seen them, certainly in Maryland. I think that's a big struggle. How do you reach the people who might be interested in traveling or inspire your local population to engage in something that they've never done before? I would say that's like almost that would be our number one struggle. Where are the new buyers, and how do you get them to take action?
Exactly right. That is so true. I think that's very true. We're really struggling with that now. Early on, 2 or 3 years ago, we would invite all of our friends to come to the gala, and they would come to the gala and they'd buy a ticket. We can only fit, 250 people in the venue. And so we looked around and we're like talking to everybody and realizing that we love them all and they love us, but they're not buying art, and they're kind of taking up space from people that we want to come in the room who are interested in learning more about our artists and purchasing art from them.
That was a change that we had to make. I think it was 3 years ago, but maybe it was 4 years ago now, when we upped our ticket price to the gala from $150 to $250. And, it was really because the collector's party was becoming the hip party of the summer. And we were like, that's not what the collector's party is designed to be. It's designed to be a sales event. So if you're not serious about coming home with a painting, then we like you, but we don't actually want you at this party anymore.
Right. Exactly
well, I mean,
right.
and they can come to the quick draw event, and they can come to and be a part of it, in other ways. I mean,
right.
I know you have parties and you have the gala and that sort of thing, and that draws $250. Yep. What are your big numbers? Are those your big numbers? The
yes,
250.
Those are our big numbers. Even our quick draw last year was off a little bit. The quick draw is very popular, but we've had it. Again, we probably have had the quick draw too many times in Essex. Essex Shipyard is a very paintable location, and artists love it. So not only do they paint there all week and all year, but they also love to do the quick draw. We have 120 artists that participate in the quick draw, and maybe 120 people who came this past year to participate, to buy art. So outside of the artists, another 150 people.
Okay.
But the gala really is our big event.
You say that your attendance was down at the quick draw, but let's just talk about something else that is a challenge for all plein air events, which is the unpredictability of the weather. I mean, last year at your event, it is not like it was a picture-perfect fall day in Cape Ann, right?
It was every painting painted that whole week, except for the day of the quick draw, have gray skies. Everything was gray.
It was like a nor'easter, right?
For a week. It was the longest nor'easter I've ever experienced in my life. It blew a gale for 4 days, and I think we joked about it before. The artists were lashing their easels to trees and to their cars and painting inside their cars, looking out.
Right.
It was really not an optimal season.
And there's nothing. I mean, again, we have had Plein Air Easton in the blistering heat, where truly at the quick draw one year somebody painted an egg frying on a pan in the middle of the street. And at the quick draw, that's how hot it was at Plein Air Easton that year. I think that we certainly have had the multi-day deluge of rain that we thought was going to be our undoing. I mean, we all have to deal with these weather events. Do you have advice for somebody who's running an event? It is kind of just buckle up and hang on. Is that our advice?
It absolutely is. You can't cancel it. Artists are coming from all over the country and sometimes from outside of the country. You can't cancel it. All you can do is encourage them to be prepared for the weather. And then in their goodie bags that we give out, we sort of try to plan for that as well, with sunscreen and, chapstick. And everybody gets an umbrella and, certain things that will
maybe help,
maybe them to use, and maybe they will. But,
got it.
Yeah, it's hard. One of the things that I did at the end of this year, because sales were disappointing, I did a pretty in-depth survey with the artists, and out of that survey we have made some changes to this year. I think it's important to listen to the artists.
Yeah.
They had some really good feedback, particularly around number of artists in the event, as well as number of competition paintings being entered and that kind of thing. And because of their feedback, we have changed how our prospectus looks for 2020.
Wow. What are those big changes?
We've gone
Can
from,
you tell us? You don't have to.
Oh, no, it's not a secret, and nothing is huge, but we've gone from 40 artists to 35.
Gotcha.
The feeling was that, especially our gala was beautiful, but there were 40 artists. Each artist had 5 paintings hanging, and then we had all the artists and another 200 people in the rooms. It was very difficult to see everything. It was just too busy.
That is a very big change. It's just 40% of your inventory is going to be, or actually 60% of your inventory will be highlighted further. So that's good. That's good. And I always found out, or I've found out through watching the organization of Plein Air Easton, is the artists really do know a lot. I mean, they obviously have their opinions, and they can be unorganized, and they can, they're like any of us. They're just like people, just like we are. But they really do know.
Did you hear that, Plein Air artists? You're just like people.
Right. I mean, it's like, I don't want to get on here and criticize all unorganized people, but me myself being one. I mean, they're just people. But, like, they really do know, they have a lot of great tips. They've talked to us about lighting for years, the lighting, and this and that. Yeah,
we know more about the temperature of light bulbs than anyone else on the planet, I feel like, at this
and
point
I'm appreciative of that.
What are there any other big changes or plans for the future that you have that you want to share with us? I mean, again, I think that I feel like we've identified a lot of the big struggles for us. Again, it always is about, ensuring a new event and bringing new things in. I mean, I think after 15 years, it's like, you're like, but people like what we're doing. But if you want to get pressed, they're like, so what's new for 2020? Like, that's the part you're like, we don't have room for new. But, you identified one big change. Is there anything else that you guys are sort of retooling to stay relevant or to try to increase your sales?
Well, yeah, we are. So our gala has traditionally been on Saturday night and then the quick draw Sunday. Which does not allow much time for the paintings to be hanging outside of the gala for sales. So this year the gala is actually going to be on Friday night,
like ours.
And then the following day, yep. So the following day, the gallery will be open. It'll probably be free to the public. That's something that we're trying to figure out. We might throw something later in the afternoon for a ticketed price with a gallery talk and walk or whatever.
Sure.
And then so that'll allow another whole 10 hours of the paintings the next day to be hung for sale. And then Sunday will be the quick draw. So we have that additional day in the middle that the artists may not love, but that will certainly enable them to be able to sell their art, especially if they come down there and are available for the public to meet them and talk to them and encourage them to learn more about them.
From a heads and beds standpoint, or if you're planning to travel to Cape Ann, it gives you like more days to engage in the festival too.
Right. Exactly.
Cool. I think that's a good change. Is there anything else you want to tell us about?
Oh, we're really excited. The prospectus is going out this weekend, but we're looking forward to another really strong year. It's our 5th year, so that's kind of exciting.
Congratulations. I guess I'll go back to your prospectus launching, and we can also share an insider perspective that I bet we share. When you launch your prospectus, how many people apply at the beginning and how many people apply when it's 24 hours out? So if you're launching a new event and you put a prospectus out there and like maybe only 1 or 2 people apply, are you sunk?
Exactly right.
Nope.
No, not at all.
Wait
not
for
at all.
it.
And and then so we are in the Cape Ann area. So one of our advisors is John Caggiano.
Oh yeah.
And so John is full of advice. Who would have thought that John would be full of advice?
Wait, you heard it here first. No, you didn't, because anybody who knows him knows.
And he has said to me and to the board over and over again when there's angst, at the end of February going through March and we have 40 people who have applied and 50 people and we know that last year we had 200, he kept saying people are going to wait to the end of the day. of the last day. And of course, then the last day I started getting emails last year. Is it 11:59 a.m.?
Is it Eastern Standard Time? What is the...
Time. Thank you for that reminder, by the way, because I did not put Eastern Standard Time in the prospectus. I have to correct that.
No, again, we're getting like terrified phone calls on our personal cell phones with like 3 minutes to spare that their internet connection isn't working and can't they have an exception? Yes. I should start dropping names about who the usual suspects are there too, but I'll keep my mouth shut and let them know I'm not selling them out. But no, I think
they're just people.
They're just people.
They're just like people.
Just like plein air painters, just like people. No, I think we sort of say that 3 days out, we could double the number of applications that we have gotten like to that point, and that's like what is actually going to happen to us. So we've done a lot of hand wringing. I think that's something that if you were a new event organizer, you might not anticipate to be true. I mean, I think inherently we all know that people wait till the last minute, but like, no joke, they really wait until the last minute.
They do. And you know, I send out reminder emails once a week, and then I start getting the hate mail back. Stop bothering me. Why are you sending me this email? Take me off your list. Or I've already applied, didn't I? Can you please double check?
You double check, right? Exactly. You're like, no, that email wasn't actually for you. It's for everybody. I didn't write you personally. Well, that's terrific. So remind me again what day your prospectus launches so that people can log on to your website and check it out.
Hopefully by Monday.
Awesome.
We're just tweaking it and getting it out there.
And your website again is?
www.capeannpleinair.com.
Awesome. It's just been such a pleasure talking to you today. I always think it feels better to know that we're swimming in the same water.
Absolutely.
You know, you're not alone out there, Susan. We're in Easton struggling with the same daggone stuff. I heard a rumor that maybe you're going to come down and meet with us face to face, and we'll treat you to that glass of wine that we promised you for putting up with all of our podcast hijinks. Is that true?
A glass of wine. I think I have it in writing that you offered me a ticket or two to the gala. So
100% you get a ticket to the gala. I just want our whole listening audience to know that, because then everybody's going to be hitting me up for that. Yeah, no, everybody, that offer is not open to you. If you're listening to the podcast, there are no collector's party tickets just for being on the podcast. There's only collector's party tickets for people that we abused multiple times with the podcast process. Okay, let's be really clear. Asterisk. But yeah, it'll be great to meet you in person. And thanks for spreading the word about plein air painting. I think that it's such a cool community to be a part of.
It certainly is, and I want to really thank you for helping us raise awareness for Cape Ann Plein Air, and I appreciate your time and letting me talk about this, because I could talk about it all day.
Awesome.
Great talk, Susan. Thank you very much.
The Plein Air Easton Podcast is brought to you by the Avalon Foundation and was produced by Nick Richards. Our theme music was generously provided by Blue Dot Sessions. Remember to rate, comment, and subscribe. You can learn more about Plein Air Easton at pleinaireaston.com.
Did we do good? What do you think?
I think it went pretty well. I don't know. I hope I gave you enough information.
I think it's good. Nick, do you think it's good?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wish we said?
No, I'm just continuing to record in case you guys say something funny at the tail end that I can use.